Hello everyone, this is George Homer with Law Room and Campus Clarity. Thank you for joining our webinar today for Preventing Sexual Violence in Higher Education for the Illinois requirement. My name is George Homer. I'm an account executive here at Law Room and Campus Clarity. I've been here about 9 years and have helped hundreds of higher ed institutions with online training compliance around Title IX, Campus Save, harassment prevention, substance abuse prevention, and other conduct and compliance topics. And so we're going to be spending about 30 minutes on this webinar today. I do appreciate everyone's time in joining us. We'll also be sending out a recording which will you can share with your colleagues or go back and reference at your own convenience. So just to talk a little bit about our agenda, we'll talk through an overview of House Bill 821 for Illinois. We'll talk through Campus Clarity and complying with the mandate. And then we'll talk about campus climate surveys, so beyond compliance. So there is not a climate survey requirement in Illinois, but going beyond checking the box and administering climate surveys is really a critical piece of the sexual assault prevention strategy for most of the campuses that we talk with. And so definitely want to talk about what that looks like and how that is a critical piece. There will be an optional 10-minute overview of the Think About It program, which was developed with University of San Francisco and 18 other institutions, and as a NASPA award-winning program. And many of the folks on this call today are existing customers, and so you can choose to stay on for that 10 minutes or not. And so I want to take a minute now to talk about some of the other challenges that we see for colleges and universities in Illinois that have faced issues around compliance for HB821 and Title IX. And so many of the colleges and universities that I speak with already have a compliance training program in place when we start these conversations, and so it was either something built in-house or they're using another solution. And so in either case, we've seen some really consistent patterns. If the program was built in-house, many of the campuses would get a couple months into the development and start to run out of steam around maintenance and development. And there's this realization that the courses need to be updated on an ongoing basis. So contextualizing and addressing the legal aspects of ongoing legislative changes made it impractical, or in the worst case scenario, an OCR complaint arrived and it became too risky to entrust the development to these internal resources. And in case of an external vendor, what we're finding is that institutions are relying on a host of different training vendors, not just one, to piecemeal together a program, and they hope that it's meeting the mark. And typically this is the result of evolving legislation, making it difficult to rely on a single solution. And so we know that this decentralized approach is creating some anxiety within institutions in Illinois and across the country. We also talk about faculty adoption, and one of the things that I hear daily relates to deploying courses to faculty. And so faculty can be very supportive of the initiative for the student population, but can be less than enthusiastic about completing the courses themselves. And so, we've been providing compliance training, online compliance training for decades to employees, and so our employee program is about 45 minutes, which still meets the requirements while being respectful of the time constraints. And then we talk to many campuses around the student experience, and so many of our university partners went in believing that they'd be able to deliver a one-size-fits-all approach to training, and unfortunately, and obviously, the same course that's going to connect with an 18-year-old freshman is not going to connect with a 35-year-old grad student, and so the delivery needs to be different. And so we'll talk a little bit today about what that looks like and how we've helped campuses accomplish that. And so for the universities that have been delivering compliance training for several years already, another common challenge we see or frustration is the haven't we seen this before syndrome, which occurs when a campus is stuck replaying the same course year after year to faculty, students, and staff. And so obviously there's a steep decline in engagement and interest when the institution is just hitting the replay button on an existing program. And so for us, it's critical to iterate and innovate every year and refresh programs, revise programs, so that we continue to have a course that resonates and that engages our audience. And so just to talk a little bit about the background as well as who we are as a company. So in 2010, think about it, was created with a collaboration of University of San Francisco and 18 campuses. 2011, we launched a course for employees around Title IX based on the Dear Colleague letter. In 2013, the Campus Save Act came about. And so we quickly updated our programs for employees and students to include jurisdictional specific material, including evolving laws and updating the courses as needed. California, there's a yes means yes affirmative consent requirement, as well as OCR guidance for Title IX that we've adapted and updated our program. 2015, New York, enough is enough, and final regs for the Campus Save Act, addressing multiple courses for multiple audiences, so age-appropriate, audience-specific courses, whether it be adult learners, grad students, community college students, or faculty and staff members. In 2016, Illinois Preventing Sexual Violence in Higher Education Act was provided by the legislation there in Illinois. 2016, we developed a new program for employees called Bridges, which we'll talk a little bit about today, as well as updates to our Think About It program. And so just to take a step back now and talk about Campus Save Act and Title IX training requirements. So we know Campus Save Act requires all incoming students and new employees to be offered a primary prevention program, all faculty and students to be offered ongoing prevention and awareness campaigns, all enrolled students and then institutions need to document what they've done to meet these requirements. I also want to touch on Title IX, which deepens institutional responsibility to train students and faculty on an ongoing basis. And so schools should provide sexual violence training for students at regular intervals, and employees on a regular basis need to know what they're required to report on, as well as how to respond to reports of sexual violence. And so just to talk a little bit about the Illinois requirements, so schools must comply with this new requirement by August 1st of 2016. So 2 months from now, the focus needs to be on new and ongoing education content. Program needs to lay a foundation for informing students how to identify, report, and prevent sexual violence. There is not a one-course silver bullet, so our course helps lay the foundation by informing students of the new information, and you'll see many of the requirements of Illinois' new law are already incorporated into our course content. And so we've already versioned the course and updated the existing course with those requirements 2 weeks ago. Looking at course content today, we'll talk about material and the new law. And so just to talk a little bit about the student training requirements, so beginning with the 2016-27 academic year, schools must provide annual training for all students who attend at least one class on campus on the following subjects: consent, reporting options, available victim support and services, and bystander intervention, and risk reduction strategies. So just to talk a little bit about awareness programming content and the critical points. So we look at comprehensive policies, so schools must adopt policies that include a definition of consent that meets the minimum requirements, confidential and anonymous reporting options, amnesty for underage drinking, access to trained confidential advisors, protecting parties and witnesses' privacy to the extent possible, and procedures for fair and impartial conduct proceedings. Looking at the employee training requirements, so the new law requires annual training for employees who receive student reports of sexual or interpersonal violence, refer students to victim services, are involved in conduct proceedings. So just about anyone on campus could meet one or all of these definitions, and so making training available to everyone on campus is really what this is all about. Looking at reporting requirements, and so schools must submit annual reports to the Department of Human Rights and the State Attorney General's office that includes the school sexual violence policy, number of students who participate in the school's prevention and awareness programs, and number of reports of sexual and interpersonal violence and the outcome of those allegations. So policy acknowledgments is a critical piece of all of this, and so being able to disseminate your policy, being able to ask for an electronic signature, and actually having those records stored electronically are critical aspects of both complying with the Illinois requirement and addressing best practices for risk management. And so all of our programs incorporate policies and require electronic signatures. We also contextualize the state law, and so a couple aspects here. So we know that laws change, and so we know that course material can't get stale and can't be static, so it's always evolving and changing when laws change. And we know contextualizing the law is critical, and so having material that is easy to understand, that incorporates all of the state required information and is not just a link to statutes and legislation that people aren't going to be able to understand, but contextualizing it so that it's easy to understand, that it's in plain English, and how it's applicable to the real world. And that incorporates consent, domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, victim protection orders, and sexual assault, all under Illinois law and all revised as needed. We also talk about reporting information. So looking at conduct proceedings, looking at a student that chooses not to report or a student that chooses to report, what that looks like from a legal perspective as well as a campus perspective. Incorporating reporting information. So all of our programs, we incorporate campus-specific reporting options, on and off-campus resources, non-confidential, confidential reporting, support services. So a wide range of reporting information that's required under the law, both for Illinois requirements and the Campus Save Act. Looking at confidential disclosures, and so a student chooses not to report. What does that look like? Confidential disclosures. A student chooses to report. So investigation, adjudication, decision, and sanction, all specific to Illinois law and specific to your campus. Looking at interim protective measures, and so resources that are available to support students like victim advocacy, housing assistance, academic support, legal assistance, mental health, disability services, all protective measures in place, and resources that are accessible anywhere throughout the course to be able to go in and see how I can get on and off-campus help as a student. Looking at on-campus resources, looking at off-campus resources, and I work with a number of community colleges that have multiple campuses that cross county lines, and so making sure that the material is campus-specific or jurisdictional-specific is critical to having effective and compliant information. And looking at the long-term cost of sexual violence, so looking at individual cost, looking at community cost, and societal cost are requirements of the Illinois legislation. Addressing bystander intervention and risk assessment reduction. So all of our courses are bystander intervention focused, and so making sure that this is spelled out with the risk assessment and reduction. So really our courses are designed to help students help one another. So not just being passive, but being an active bystander. And then just to talk a little bit about climate surveys and our approach to behavior change. And so when we look at making a difference on campus and doing more than just checking the box, we think about primary prevention programs, we think about follow-up courses, annual ongoing refresher courses that change every year, and then an annual climate survey. And so having a climate survey to really assess the efficacy of your programs and then be able to tweak and adjust as needed is really a critical piece of sexual assault prevention on campus. And going beyond just compliance and checking the box, but actually distributing out climate surveys is what this conversation is about. And so most institutions that I talk with are under scrutiny to affect culture change and not just check the box. And so the best way to really look at efficacy and how your program is doing on campus is to do a comparative analysis with primary prevention programs, follow-ups, refreshers, and then climate surveys, and doing that annually. And so many of the folks that we talk with have indicated that they've done a climate survey or they're in the process of planning a climate survey. And so at CampusClarity, we see this whole education and climate survey piece is interlinked. And so we want to help with gaps and fill those gaps with programming. And so having that climate survey can really take a look at how your programs are doing on campus, and then go in and actually tweak those and address areas where there needs improvement. And so we incorporate a climate survey tool into our system to where right from the training portal, the administrative access, people can launch climate surveys. Our customers can launch climate surveys. There are additional costs for the climate surveys, but it does allow customers to have that flexibility to have a climate survey tool in the same place as their training and distribute that to audiences that they've selected to administer it electronically and then assess anonymized responses electronically. So we'll talk a little bit about how that works. Talking about refresher training, and so for the Campus Save Act, making training available on an ongoing basis annually is one of the requirements, and so we've developed annual refresher training that changes every year. So it's not just a stale course that people just continue to do over and over again, but it actually evolves and changes every year so that the students and employees are always taking something different. Now looking at climate surveys, and so this is an end user, or what the student or employee would see, and so this gives the ability to customize the survey in such a way that it's branded to the campus. It's got your campus photos. There's some text that you can include. There's trigger warnings, so we have a persistent trigger warning that can be included on every page. There's IRB consent, there's skip logic. So all of these are pieces that make this a specific climate survey for sexual assault prevalence on campus. And so we provide a template of White House specific questions that campuses can use, or they can develop their own questions or other questions that they're comfortable with, and thus deploy out those questions through the same way as you would a course. It goes out electronically in an invitation. Students or employees would go on and access the climate survey, and then you're able to go in and look at the results, anonymous results, and do a data analysis of the raw data. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to actually assess what's going on campus with sexual assault prevalence, and then make adjustments as needed. And so just to take a quick course recap of what we've talked about today. So we look at the statement of prohibition, the relevant Illinois state laws, reporting information, explanation of confidential reports, responses to reports and sanctions, interim protective measures, long-term costs of sexual violence, bystander intervention, and risk assessment and reduction. And then looking at the compliance deadline, so schools must comply by August 1st, so essentially 2 months from now, and all of the updates in our Illinois, all of the course updates are made for our Illinois customers. Looking at some additional resources, and I'm going to send this out as well in a recording, so you can go in and access Campus Clarity resources. You can look at our blog, so these can give you additional information on addressing these new requirements. And so just to talk a little bit about Campus Clarity by the numbers, I'm also going to send a link to all of the folks on our call today right now, so that you can go in and look at all of the things that we're talking about on a tracking and reporting climate survey piece, community college courses, graduate courses, adult learners, undergrads, employees, faculty, and staff. And so just to share a little bit about Campus Clarity before we walk into the product overview, which will be about 10 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions before we do that, but a little bit about Campus Clarity. We trained over 1.5 million employees and students last year at over 1,500 organizations. Over 700 colleges and universities trust us and rely on us for Title IX and Campus Save Act compliance from campuses like Lake Forest here in Illinois, Chicago State, Columbia College, Chicago, College of DuPage, Blackhawk, a number of campuses in Illinois rely on us for for Title IX and Campus Save Act required training. So for the existing clients on the call, if you'd like to stick around for 10 minutes and look at the product demo, you're welcome. You've probably already seen this information, but for the folks that are staying on and looking, really excited to share with you what we're doing here, as well as answer any questions that you may have. And so we're best known here at Campus Clarity and Law Room for our instructional design aspect, where we've won NASPO awards, we've won Stevie awards, and so we believe that students and employees should learn to be engaged. And so we developed our student program with over 40 student focus groups at 18 institutions. We use a number of different types of learning modalities and interactions, and we do include many silhouettes in our programs, and we found that students are very receptive to silhouettes because it removes racial bias and facial expressions. And so here I have an interaction that's a house party scenario. There's different scenarios taking place in different rooms, and so I choose my own adventure essentially. And so I choose the situation where Alan is taking a very intoxicated Dominique into the bedroom. So as a bystander, what am I going to do? So I go and get Nabuki to confront Alan, and Alan says, hey, Dominique's fine, we've been dancing all night. So we ask a question, what should Nabuki say? So if I answer, if she's been dancing all night, she's probably interested. That's a bad call. That's the wrong answer. Dancing does not consent to anything. This could have led to sexual assault. So I actually have to go back and answer the question correctly to move on. So I always have to get 100% completion. And so we believe it's critical that there's learning points so that students and employees can't just go on autopilot and click through the material without paying attention and being engaged. And so when I get an answer incorrect, I actually have to go back and get it right to move on. And so I go back, I get some feedback, it lets me know this is correct. And this is why it's correct. And this is our undergraduate program. We do have a grad student program that it's much more mature and focused to grad students, and been very well received at med schools, law schools, and many, many graduate programs throughout the U.S. And so we also believe it's critical that there's alcohol and drug abuse prevention into the course. And so here I have a situation where I put in that I'm a male, I've had X number of drinks, I weigh a certain weight, and I've been drinking for a certain time. It lets me know I'm intoxicated, I'm incapable of giving consent for sex, and I'm not legal to drive, and I could be arrested if caught. We also provide employee training, and so we have a wide range of courses for employees. Intersections covers Title IX, harassment prevention, and the Campus Save Act, and is specific to Illinois law and is updated. Bridges is a shorter course which covers just Title IX and the Campus Save Act, and also updated as all courses are. And so we use a wide range of learning modalities in all of our courses. So we use videos, we use animations, we use case studies to really engage the learner. And so here we have a situation where a student is being harassed by a professor, and so the student goes to the dean. So what should the dean do? Well, if the dean does nothing, we know that's incorrect. So the dean needs to report this to the school's Title IX coordinator. And so we get the answer correct, we're able to move on. If we get it incorrect, we have to actually go back and get it right to move on. We also believe it's critical that there's accessible training. So all of our programs are above 508 compliant and actually WCAG 2.0 level AA, which is the highest accessibility standard in the country. And so I know a lot of solutions tout that they're 508 or accessible, but they're really not. And so having a provider that puts it in writing, that is a partner that has developed this with leading institutions. I know CSU, the whole Cal State system is a customer of ours, and so UC, University of California system, is also a customer, and so those two systems are leading in the accessibility push, and so just testament to the fact that those campuses wouldn't be working with us, those systems wouldn't be working with us if we weren't fully accessible. Talking about a tailored experience, and so it's critical that the course is tailored to the institution, so there's a consistent message across the organization. So the course has to have the look and feel of each unique campus to maximize the learning experience. And so here we brand the course with your logo, so it is actually specific to your campus. We incorporate your welcome letter from your president or provost, as well as your campus photos, so all very much specific to every campus. We talk about ongoing education, so each year we're creating new courseware to refocus employee and student engagement on current topics that are relevant in the higher ed space. And so for our employee program, we include 20 compliance courses from harassment prevention to protecting minors, to data security, diversity, FERPA, ethics, illness injury prevention, bloodborne pathogens. For students, we have a holistic approach to training where we incorporate primary prevention programs for undergrads, so younger students, adult learners, graduate students, community college students, follow-up courses, sanctioned courses, and then there's a yearly, annual, ongoing refresher course that changes every year and is required from a Campus Save Act compliance perspective. Course deployment, so whether you have 200 students and employees or 20,000, an area of concern is how are you going to monitor, track, and deploy this to make sure that employees and students are getting this done. And so whether you're doing something internally or using another solution, you don't want this to be someone's full-time job. So going in and being able to batch upload lists of names and emails, tracking progress, setting automated email reminders, pulling status reports are all critical functions to a successful program. Then we look at on and off campus resources. So we talked a little about this at the beginning of the webinar, but having campus-specific resources both on and off campus are critical and required under the Campus Save Act. And so making sure that courses are campus-specific as well as required under Illinois law. So having that campus specificity is a critical component. And so lastly, just to give you folks a little bit of information about Campus Clarity and Law Room, and I'd be remiss not to share with you Law Room's compliance expertise. And so owe it to you to give you information about Law Room, and it should be a big deal for any HB821 or Campus Save Act compliance solution. So Law Room has over 20 years of compliance expertise, servicing tens of thousands of organizations along the way. Our founder is a lawyer. We have 10 lawyers on staff to make sure that courses are up to date. We do provide training to over 700 colleges and universities throughout the U.S., from well-known campuses like NYU, Columbia, Harvard, and Yale on the East Coast to Stanford, USC, and the whole University of California system on the West Coast. And so we have a couple minutes left. I'm happy to field any questions and answer those. Also happy to take any one-on-one questions. My contact information is on the screen. So we have I'm George Homer, my phone number 925-927-2251, g.homer@lawroom.com. So if you folks want a demo of the course to take a look at it, if you have questions, if you'd like to discuss your 2016 training strategy, if you'd like pricing on how to bring this to your campus, please give me a call, shoot me an email, put a question in the question box or a chat, and I'll definitely answer each questions, any questions individually. But I do appreciate everyone's time for taking this call. We will be sending out a recording here in the next day or so that you can share this with colleagues or review it at a later time. And so lastly, just want to give a couple more seconds for questions. So if you have any, throw them in the question box or shoot me an email or give me a call. I want to thank everyone for their time today. Please, if there are any additional questions, let me know. Otherwise, thank you and have a great weekend.